Yeah, thank you. My name is Donatella Šarić, and like Aditya already said, I'm the ESR 10 in the Appears project, and the name of my research topic is implementation of gloss in a 5-channel appearance space within a color managed workflow. So basically the topic, my research topic is everything related to gloss. All of my research I'm doing at FOGRA. FOGRA is at the Preppers department. FOGRA is Research Institute for Media Technology located in Munich, in Germany. And for today, I will first describe the problem statement in my research project, my research objectives, then the project status of the work package 1, which is almost done. Then the work package 2, which is on which I'm working now, and also future work. So as we all know, there are 4 main appearance attributes, namely the color, the gloss, texture, and translucency. And through years of research, we can today control the color very well. For example, here on the right is my course supervisor printed in 3D, and the colors are actually produced very well. But this print needs a little bit more than just color in order to look more plausible. And since gloss is the second important attribute right after the color, the question is how to control the gloss. Because down here I put 2 examples. One is 2D prints and the second one is 3D prints. And they are printed, for example, the green one, they are printed with the same input data, just with the difference that the left one is matte, the right one is glossy, and the difference in the final appearance is you can see. And we still need a lot research and a lot in standardization in order to first better understand the gloss and then to be able to control it. Therefore, the main objective of my research is to develop a workflow for capturing visualization and also reproduction of gloss within an ICC Max workflow. But for that, the first step is to see what are the visual significant parameters and dimensions for the gloss of a surface. Then, by using those parameters to create reference materials and also establish an appropriate measurement method for them. The third step is to reduce those parameters to one scalar G, which needs to be perceptually uniform so that I can, at the end, implement it in the 5-channel appearance space within a color managed workflow, where the first 3 channels will be the color, so RGB. 4th channel will be alpha, so the translucency, and then the 5th channel will be the gloss. And why ICC Max? Because that's the 5th version of ICC, with which we can work more than just color. So in ICC Max, we can store more than just LAB or RGB. We can also work with BRDF and spectral reflections. The first step in this research that we did was actually we wanted to compare the devices. They are all like appearance measurement devices, and we wanted to see first which parameters they measure and how they measure it, which range, and how they do it. But the first problem we run into was that these 5 parameters measure completely different. These 5 devices measure completely different parameters, but 4 of them measure the distinctness of image. But the problem was that they measure it in 4 completely different ways, that's we couldn't compare it more like on a higher level, like one like the raw point, he projects the straight lines. Other one calculates the scattering. The Canon calculates also the scattering, but on a different ways. And the big looks at the deformation of the laser beam. Another problem with gloss appearance is the visual ranking, because the visual ranking of the samples does not correspond with the ranking when you measure it. And since we got the textile samples from actually from a FOGA member, we wanted to test that, to investigate that more on those samples. So the sample set contained 30 samples, but we took 7. And then we conducted a psychophysical experiment with 4 observers. And we did a pair comparison where we did ask the observers to judge the difference between each sample. We put in front of them also 6 reference samples. So the differences were on scale from 1 to 6. Then since the linear scaling didn't work, we did multi-dimensional scaling, and the results from one observers, when we plotted the results, showed that one dimension is the gloss, but in the y direction, in the other dimension, the results were corresponding to the roughness of the samples. And this is actually that we paused because we didn't have time and we needed more help on that. But we decided to do a prediction model to predict how the observers would judge the gloss appearance. So we had 2 sets of samples. First set was the torso samples that we always use as a reference scale. And the second set of samples was, I think, 13 samples printed on papers with different gloss levels from, and the gloss was going from 1 to 100 gloss units measured at 60 degrees. And we trained the model on those reference samples and we validated it on the printed samples. And as input, we tried a lot of different combinations and a lot of different parameters. But at the end, the model that showed the best results was using the distinctness of image, the DOE, and the gloss measured at 60 degrees. So the interesting thing here was that the model doesn't use the color as an input. And since the color has a big influence on the perceived gloss, because darker colors are perceived to be glossier and glossier objects are perceived to be darker, we looked how the device that we use for measurement of the DOE, how it measures. So actually it measures how intense the scattering is around the specular reflection at 20 degrees. So how much light is reflected in the diffuse. So the assumption is that the color information are hidden in the distinctness of image. And another thing, we use those psychophysical, the data from the psychophysical experiment. We actually conducted the psychophysical experiment in 2 parts. One was under 60-degree illumination, and the other part was under 85-degree illumination. Both times we asked the observers to judge the gloss. And the first thing that we noticed is that there are no major changes in the perceptual gloss when we change the angle of illumination. but also that we tried multiple fittings, and the results show that there is a quadratic correlation between the perceptual gloss and the C20 and C60, the Canon scattering indexes measured with the Canon surface reflectance analyzer. Those are actually they describe how the light is scattered from the surface when the higher the values, the greater the scattering. They actually quantify the image sharpness reflected at 20 degree and 60 degree, but they do not quantify the intensity of the reflected light, like for image clarity and distinctness of image. Instead, they are just looking at the shape of the BRDF. And another problem that was stated in this paper was that the terminology in the field of appearance is a little bit messy, because there are terms that have double meaning, and also terms that you don't know if they are the same things or same thing or not. The next thing is that I'm currently working on is the review of the Hunter's gloss mapping, because before less than 100 years, Hunter did gloss mapping and established the measurement of gloss at 20, 60, and 85 degrees. This was later adopted as in the ASTM standards and ISO standard as the as the way of measurement of gloss. But this gloss mapping is today questioned by the current practice, and the plan is to review the mapping with respect to modern equipment used for inkjet and electrophotography. Another thing I'm currently working, actually I'm just preparing for that because the measurements are in progress, is collaboration with Tanzima, which is gloss characterization of 2.5D prints using BRDF measurements, but the measurements are still in progress. And the next thing I'm planning also to do is to create those reference samples. Firstly to print it, and then to use them and also create virtual reference materials. That is all.